We're celebrating Black composers tonight, and I'm using the word celebrate because we would like to highlight their wonderful work that received far less attention in classical music world. Each of our members took the initiative to research and find more about Black composers, and through it, it required a lot of time and effort, but we learned so much through that journey. We hope to raise awareness and unlock new level of interest through our concert today. We'll have two of our guest composers, each from LA and Redlands, joining us live, so please stay tuned for that as well. Our cellist, Sarah, will talk about her piece.
Hello, everyone. I'll be playing Hum for Solo Cello by Derek Spiva Jr. today. I'm so glad that I got to know this piece and I have a chance to share this deep and spiritual song with you tonight. Hum is a piece that imitates a human voice. I think the cello is the perfect instrument for this. It is a personal meditation meant to sound as if one is improvising a song and intimate moment. There are many new symbols that probably you will notice throughout the piece, the sound. There are many blink symbols used in this piece. Thus, a blink symbol is a type of ornamentation like grace note that is between a half step and quarter step above the main note, like B, B, something like that. This type of ornamentation can be found in traditional instruments like Bulgarian kava, Indian bansuri, and in Tagomba flute from northern Ghana, as well as the Iranian bowed instrument Kamanchi, and Bulgarian vocal techniques, and in many other places in Asia too. I would like to demonstrate a little bit of how this sounds like on my cello. So if I play this one, this is a traditional, this is ornamentation, like grace note, you can say, and then blink is similar. But I try to play, because the composer wants us to play more like a quarter tone to the half tone. So it's a little bit flatter sound. So in the music, actually it is my second string, so I'll play it here. Something like that throughout the piece. Performers may choose to sing or hum with what they are playing at any time in this piece. I have tried to hum toward to the end of my performance. Hopefully you can hear it. Enjoy the piece.
All right. That was great.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Derek.
Thank you. Wonderful job. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, it's a hard to play in front of the composer, I think, or the musician. Yeah.
You
I
did a
mean,
fantastic job. That was
thank
beautiful.
you. Next time I can do even more differently. Okay, so you have such a rich cultural background. I could hear from your music. Can you tell us more about your experiences in different cultures and then how that means to you in music making?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very kind of multicultural area. I was born in Orange County, and then I was in the Central Valley when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, and then I came back to Los Angeles. My family, the majority of my family has always lived in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is such a hub for many people that have ancestry from so many different areas around the planet. And I think as part of that, growing up here, I always just found it amazing to be able to have to be able to converse with people with different backgrounds, and especially different musical backgrounds. And one of the most amazing things um, about this place too is, and the United States in general, is that when people come here from different countries, immigrate here at any generation from however long back, they bring everything and they're always willing to teach. They love to play music and teach people their music. And so as part of that, I absolutely cherish all of the musical cultures that I've run into, and all of the people and the communities and the friends that I've made. And I just love being a student. I just love being a student to other people's classical music, because every culture has their classical music. I think sometimes when people say classical music, people immediately think of Europe, but every culture has a classical music, and I just love to celebrate that in my music by interweaving languages together, musical languages together.
Yeah, I mean, like I totally see that. When I first heard your music, I was so excited because like, wow, I've never heard anything like this in the classical contemporary music scene. But at the same time, I could really connect to it. And that's exactly what Sarah said when I like we talked about your music, and Sarah immediately say like, "Oh, I can connect to this music." Remember, Sarah, you said that? Yeah. And so you just talked about classical music, and I know you often talk about in your interview, you say like classical music is the most versatile, open form. And I think that's, in a way, it will surprise many people. But what you said is actually very true. I wonder, like, I know you're associated with a lot of ensembles, you're a music director, you conduct, like Bridge to Everywhere just won the
Mhm.
Audience Choice Award this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, your thought, those vision, how is that shaping your ensemble?
It really shapes the ensemble in a way that allows the ensemble to play anything. I think that's and when you can play, when you feel like you can contribute by being able to play anything, then that really leaves the door open for being able to just communicate with more people. The music is about communication, and everybody speaks a different language, but people also, different music resonates differently depending on who you're with. And so with Bridge to Everywhere, one of the things that I always talk about with the ensemble members is about one of the things that I always mention in my interviews about how open classical music is. And I think that some people don't think about that. They don't think of classical music as a very open genre. They think like it's very closed,
Right.
and there's the Germans and the Russians and the Italians and the French, and like that's it, right?
Mm.
And then you sprinkle a little bit of Copeland in there somewhere or something like that, right? But it's just that's just kind of a narrative that classical music has been given by maybe some musicologists the media or something like that. But when you actually look at the repertoire for classical music, even a lot of the work that Duke Ellington, a lot of times people say Duke Ellington, they say jazz, but a lot of it is it's orchestras for orchestras.
Right.
These are classical pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and they have extremely rich harmonies, just like Ravel, just like um, Stravinsky and all of these other folks. And it's just absolutely gorgeous music, and it's part of the conversation. This is part of it. And so when you actually look at the data, when you actually look at, well, how many types of variations of pieces are there in classical music, you go from 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence with John Cage to like there's this Japanese composer Takamitsu is burning a piano while playing it on the beach. Like the spectrum is huge. The dynamic range is out of this world vast. The timbres are huge. It's a genre that like, it's just, you go to some other genres, and if you put something in 7/8 or 3/16 or something, they might freak some people out depending on where you're at. Hey, what's going on there? But in classical music, you switch back and forth, go to 11, 15, doesn't matter. So I think it's very freeing. I think if the thought of and the way that people think of classical music can catch up to what the data shows that classical music is, then I think you'll have a much more wholesome approach to understanding classical music, and understanding that everybody has a place in it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a place in it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's so
if
true.
somebody did a piece that was inspired by hip hop music, and if they did it in classical music, that would be classical music.
Right.
If it was reversed, it may not be the case.
Yeah.
If the time signature was changed a little bit or something like that, the hip hop community may not accept it the same way, but the
Right.
classical community will always take it in,
Mm-hmm.
And although said there, I'm sure there's some people that say that rap isn't music, which is a bunch of nonsense to me. I mean, of course it's music.
I can totally hear like what you think of it, and like it's really connected to what you're actually doing. I know that our listeners might be very curious about what you're doing these days during this pandemic. I know that you have a recording session like after this today, so you're still busy. Can you tell us about what you're up to?
Yeah, well, I think that the classical music community was a little bit behind the ball, and I think they realized it when and specifically the classical community in the United States, when the pandemic hit, a lot of classical artists realized that how important it was to have a digital presence and like video record and all of these things. And now I believe that that's like become a line item in people's budget. Like there's no way it'll come out. It's like everybody, we just have to plan to do this thing. And so as part of that, with the work that I do with the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, they're doing like these art films with different pieces, new pieces from the Baroque pieces, Stravinsky, and they're doing like these art films. And then so I actually have a piece that I wrote that was recorded by the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra. The first part was recorded by them a couple of weeks ago, and then I have an art film shoot coming up in a couple of weeks that we're like gearing up for and doing other recordings. So that's what I'm working on like these way of having like these art films, these classical music art films that are going to be published because classical music hasn't really done music videos the way that the other genres have. So there's a real opening here for some new stuff. So I've been working on that, and then also just some commissions and experimenting with some other textures and stuff to go with my melodic writing.
I see. So yeah, how can we hear your next piece?
Oh, my next piece. So if you go to losangeleschamberorchestra.org, there's a schedule on there for the next for the art film that'll have a lot of my music on it, and it's supposed to come out in like March-ish.
March-ish. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would just kind of stay on that. And of course, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram because I'm always putting stuff on there. And then
Okay.
at some point, Jean, I want to ask you
Mhm.
about the kind of similar ornamentation that occurs in Korean
Korean.
classical music.
Sure. Sure.
I'd
I'd
love to
love to.
also include that as
Yeah.
in the examples of other cultures that have
I see. There
this
you
kind
come.
of
You want to be the
approach.
student again.
Yeah, I
You
want
said
to be the
you
student.
love being student.
I love being the student. Being a
I
student
see.
is the best place for
I
me.
totally agree.
You know, the world is and humanity is you can learn a lot, and I just love learning.
Oh, that's wonderful. Derek, thank you so much. You're a true inspiration to us. It was great to have you, and have a great recording, and we'll look out for all your wonderful activity.
Yeah,
Thank you
you.
very
And
much.
thank you so much, Sarah, for playing the piece. You did wonderful. It was a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Now Sharon and Jiwon is going to talk about their next piece.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sharon and I will be performing the first movement of the Violin Sonata by Samuel Coleridge-Taylor today. Samuel Coleridge-Taylor was an English composer and conductor, born in Holborn in 1875 to an English mother and a father originally from Sierra Leone. His father taught him to play the violin at a young age, and he was admitted to the Royal College of Music when he was just 15 years old. He studied composition with Charles Stanford, a fan of Brahms and Dvorak's works. So naturally, Samuel was influenced by those composers. He was impressed with the musical color and texture of Brahms and Dvorak, as well as how their music took inspiration from folk music. Conscious of his African descent, Samuel's classical compositions were heavily influenced by traditional African music, and this made him one of the most progressive composer of his time. Samuel Coleridge-Taylor died of pneumonia at the age of just 37. It was an unfortunately early death, but his presence in the list of composers of African descent is significant and important. The sonata is rarely performed, and I have to admit, I never heard the music being played in concerts or recitals I've attended so far, but I'm happy to have found this beautifully written piece to play for you tonight. Now, Sharon will share with you more about the sonata. Thank you.
Hello. Coleridge-Taylor's Sonata in D minor was composed in 1897 when he was about 23 years old and published in 1917 in London. He wrote this in 3 movements. However, Jiwon and I will be performing the first movement. Coleridge-Taylor follows the sonata form. First, a clear exposition, also known as an introduction statement with 2 themes. Then, a development section where he diverges and expands on some motives that were introduced in the exposition. And finally, concluding with a recapitulation where he restates themes from the beginning. As many other classical composers did, Coleridge-Taylor also followed the norm of having the violin and piano equally share the melodic material, rather than giving the violinist the leading or featured role and leaving the pianist with the background accompaniment role. Here, instead, you will hear a nice dialogue between Jiwon and I as we take turns leading and accompanying. The themes you hear in the piece sound like folk songs. He was known to be influenced by Dvorak and Grieg, as Jiwon said, who often composed with folk melodies. Listen for the open intervals of fourths and fifths, like this, that showcase a rustic and pastoral-like quality. Enjoy.
Hello, Andre. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely lovely. That was
Thank
brilliant.
you.
Just
Hi,
brilliant.
Andre.
Hi, it's a
Great.
pleasure to see you.
Hi, it's my pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed learning and recording the piece. So
Oh,
thank
it's
you
such
for
a joy.
that.
No, it's such a joy. It's such an honor and joy to hear you perform it. It's
Aw.
just wonderful. I mean, I really appreciated the feeling and your interpretation. It was so apparent that you studied the music
Yeah, oh,
and that you
great.
heard it and you really heard it and you actually made it your own, which I really, really appreciate. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
wonderful performance.
I mean, I really like the piece, so I think that really helped me
Oh, good.
to go
Yeah,
far. But
thank you.
so I was wondering what elements of the Baroque music inspired you the most in
Yeah.
writing this piece, and how did you decide like what to borrow from the Baroque style and how much of your own style to use in this piece?
Yeah, no, that's a
Oh, and
no, it's a
finally. Finally, I find this music very idiomatic and well written for the instrument. And I was wondering if you're a violinist yourself.
Oh, now that's the best question ever. No,
Yeah,
I am
and
not.
and when she said that, I said, "Wow, that'll be the best compliment ever for a composer."
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. So no, I am not a violinist, but thank you for
Oh.
for asking. Gosh, there are lots of questions in there. So the first one, if I remember, it was about, sort of like I want to go to the one about what within the Baroque style I wanted to, what within the Baroque style I wanted to work with, and then what from my own style I wanted to work with. I know when I was composing this piece back in 2012, I spent a summer, basically, I spent the summer of 2012 composing this work. I think it was 2012, it was somewhere in there, like early 2000s, 10, 11, or 12, something like that. But it was a summer. And it was the summer, I spent the summer studying the violin partitas of Bach and the dance suites of Bach. And that summer of study taught me a lot about the Baroque dance suite, because it starts off initially, the dance suite is just that, it's just dance music. You think, oh, okay, well, this is just made for, for courtly dances. However, in the hands of Bach and in other composers, it begins to take on extra musical elements, extra dance elements. So it's not so much a specific, it's, these pieces aren't the partitas of Bach, the Baroque dance music of Bach isn't necessarily meant to be danced to in the same way as the forms from which they are borrowed. So there is a bit more kind of feeling, a bit more style, a bit more Bach style within these works. And so I just try to follow that practice and think about just the Baroque dance suite, but not necessarily something that someone could dance to, but rather as kind of a jumping off point from which folks are able to think and feel. I don't know if that begins to answer your question, but I wasn't thinking consciously about style as much as I was just trying to inhabit the feeling, the overall feeling of each movement, of each dance movement. So for example, within the saraband that you played so beautifully, there's an emphasis on the 2 of the 3 beat pattern, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And that's one of the important elements of any saraband. And so I wanted to keep to that notion, but not feel beholden to trying to make a piece of music that someone needed to dance to. Instead, I wanted to work with the idea of an emphasis on that second beat, but do so in a way that was a little bit more open to contemporary interpretation. So it's my process is pretty intuitive. My composing process is pretty intuitive. I'll do a lot of study, and then I'll think about, and then I'll just kind of sit down to write a piece. And so there's some of the things that were informing my process. Now, you had a couple other questions in there too, though.
I think that answered. Hagen.
Yeah, I think that pretty much answered my question.
Okay, good.
So yeah.
That was wonderful. I think like, and we can really hear it that you really like know you studied the Bach like so well that it's really in there. That's amazing. I have
Thanks.
another question about a completely different thing. Like, well, I was stalking you for the past month, right? Liking all your Facebook pages, going to all your online concerts, right? And you're a composer who really stresses the importance of a community. And your
Yeah.
work often involves the community, whether it's the title, the ensemble, like involving the whole like high school choir, like the like poetry you pick. Like you're really building the community through music making. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. Music is made in community. Music is, I mean, if it's not without community, all the sounds that we're hearing are just squeaks and scraws, and you know, and the notes that we put down on a piece of paper are just dots on lines, you know. So, but in order for a sound to become a piece of music, it needs to engage in a community somehow, whether that community is online or IRL, as the students like to say nowadays, in real life. So for me, music is not just about finding a piece of sound, but rather it's music is made when a community understands an experience together. And so, for instance, the piece you're talking about, the Frederick Douglass piece, I did a piece with the Albany High School chamber choir and the Albany Symphony called Voices, Studies in Hope. And that was about Frederick Douglass, the American abolitionist Frederick Douglass. And for that piece, I was really focused in on trying to bring together disparate elements, not only of musical styles, but also disparate elements of communities, right? So you've got, you know, Albany High School is, you know, very deep within the city, and many of the students there don't spend a lot of time in classical music concerts. And so the idea of kind of providing a piece of music that can build a bridge between these high schoolers and the symphony crowd was a really important task for me. Similarly, when I was writing this piece, pretty much when I write any piece, you know, I'm looking for ways of bridging and kind of trying to understand my own experience as an African American, but also as a student of classical music. Right? You know, it's a unique challenge, right? Sort of finding ways of incorporating one's own culture within the so-called classical tradition, as this ensemble so wonderfully embodies. So yeah, it's just community is everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, and I think our audience is always curious about what composers do during this pandemic. Andrea just had a orchestra premiere with Albany Symphony. So how special is that during this pandemic? And we're curious about like the piece itself and also the process, how you were able to put this together in an online setting. Like, how did you do the rehearsal? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. So Albany Symphony has been a real wonderful creative partner for my work, and so they commissioned a work for me for orchestra 15-minute piece, and it ended up being online. So travel to New York State at this time is pretty sketchy. And so I elected to stay home, and I was able to listen to the rehearssals via live stream. And I provided, you know, wrote down notes. Didn't have to provide too many notes because they were doing a really good job with the work.
I see.
But then during breaks, I would, you know, just send an email, and then the concert was later broadcast in a way similar to what we're doing here. So in some ways, it's really not that much different than it would be if I were in the room with the folks. I mean, the miracle of technology being what it is, it allows for me to provide feedback relatively quickly.
Right.
But with a piece like this, for any musicians or composers in the audience, it's super important that you try and get as much information on the pages as you can, because it's you want to get, you don't want for there to be too much ambiguity about the musical messages that you're trying to share with your creative partners, with your musical partners. I find that to be the case for any piece of music, is that, more, but that, communicating on the page is as important now as it's ever been. So to allow for wonderful musicians like all of you to be able to, share the work relatively efficiently.
Right. Yeah. And I think in the same way, like Hegan is currently in Korea.
Hi.
And yeah, Hegan, you can unmute now. And she was like, Hegan, can you tell us, the audience, how you communicate with Andre, like during this process?
Oh, so I was learning the piece and had some questions. So I just sent him an email and he kindly replied me back, like really, like within a couple of hours, very quick. So yeah, it was really helpful. Yeah. So
I think this is, I think this
I
is
love that you're in Korea right now. That's awesome.
So, I mean, in a way, like she would have missed doing a concert with us, but we're all possible because of the technology. So we're trying to like take advantage of the situation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a historic time, and as challenging as it is for every one of us, it also affords us new opportunities to connect in different and novel ways, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our last question is, what should we look out for? What are you working on now? And tell us like what we should expect from you now.
Sure. So I have two works that I'm composing currently. One, a piece for a wonderful tenor out in North Carolina, and that is based on a poem by A.E. Housman. He's gathering together a lot of contemporary composers to write music around the poetry of A.E. Housman, and so we could be on the lookout for that, I believe, sometime in February. And then another piece for Albany Symphony's new music group, the Dogs of Desire, will be featured on their American New Music Festival. I believe that will be taking place in late June. So all of this information you can find on my website, andremyers.com. I'm not as like crazy on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, but I'm pretty good about updating my website blog. And so any questions that you may have about my work, you can find there.
Thank you so much. It was such a delight to have your piece in our concert and have this dialogue with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor working with you guys so much. Thank you.
Now, ARI members are all going to come out to say thank you to our audience. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, even though it was from far away. Like, we really enjoyed the interaction with you. And all our videos tonight was made by our awesome cellist, Sarah. So we'd like to give her a grand applause, a virtual applause. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to especially thank our guest composer, Andre Meyer and Derek Spiva. And we hope to see you soon. Please stay tuned because we do have a behind the scene video also. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you and have a good evening.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.